Ethan Cole had learned long ago that life did not wait for you to catch your breath. At 38, he carried the weight of responsibilities that felt heavier than his thin shoulders suggested. He worked double shifts as a waiter in a small downtown restaurant, the kind of place where customers barely noticed your face but always noticed if their coffee was late. His shoes were always worn, his hands always tired, and his smile always practiced, because tips mattered and complaints could cost him everything. But no matter how long the shift, no matter how deep the exhaustion settled into his bones, Ethan never rushed home for himself. He rushed home for Lily, his 8-year-old daughter, the center of his world and the reason he kept standing when life tried to push him down. Lily had been 3 when her mother passed away after a sudden illness that left no time for goodbyes. Since then, Ethan had been both parents, learning bedtime routines, school meetings, and the quiet art of hiding his own grief so his daughter would feel safe. Money was always tight. Some nights dinner was little more than toast and eggs, and some mornings Ethan skipped breakfast entirely so Lily could have fruit in her lunchbox. Still, he told himself that love could fill the spaces where money could not. That rainy night began like any other exhausting shift. The restaurant had been busy, customers rushing in to escape the storm, tracking water across the floor. Ethan moved from table to table, refilling glasses, forcing cheer into his voice, counting minutes until closing. By the time he finally stepped outside, the rain had intensified, pounding the pavement like it had something to prove. He pulled his thin jacket tighter and started toward the bus stop, already calculating whether he could afford a hot chocolate for Lily the next morning. That was when he saw her. She was standing near the curb, soaked, trembling, her arms wrapped tightly around herself as cars splashed past without slowing. Her hair was plastered to her face, her shoes slipping on the wet ground, and there was something in her posture that stopped Ethan in his tracks. It was not just fear, it was panic mixed with defeat, the look of someone who felt completely alone. For a moment, Ethan hesitated. He had no umbrella, no extra money, and no margin for trouble. But then he thought of Lily, of how the world could be unkind, and how he prayed every night that if she were ever scared and alone, someone would stop. Without thinking further, he crossed the street. The young woman collapsed moments later, her body giving up as the storm continued its assault. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground, ignoring the rain soaking him to the skin. He flagged down help, called emergency services, and stayed with her as passing strangers glanced and moved on. He shielded her as best he could, murmuring reassurances she may not have heard, feeling her shiver violently against his chest. When the ambulance finally arrived, paramedics rushed her inside, asking questions Ethan barely had answers to. He gave his name, his number, and then stepped back, watching the flashing lights disappear into the rain. He stood there his hands shaking, unsure why his heart felt so heavy. Then he remembered the time, panicked, and ran for the bus, arriving home late and soaked, apologizing to Lily as she hugged him tightly, more concerned about him than the missed bedtime story. Life returned to its familiar rhythm quickly, as it always did. Bills arrived. Shifts blurred together. The memory of the rain-soaked street faded into something Ethan assumed would become just another moment he carried quietly inside him. He never expected a thank you, never. Imagined that night mattered beyond the simple truth that someone had needed help and he had given it. Days later, on one of Ethan's rare afternoons off, Lily sat cross-legged on the floor watching television while he folded laundry nearby. The TV played softly in the background, a news segment about a young woman making a remarkable recovery after a mysterious collapse during a storm. Ethan barely paid attention, his mind drifting to the grocery list and the cost of school supplies. Then Lily suddenly gasped, her small hand flying to her mouth, her eyes wide with recognition. She pointed at the screen, her voice filled with certainty and excitement. She insisted that the woman on TV was the same lady from the rain, the one Daddy helped. Ethan looked up then, really looked, and felt his chest tighten. The woman's face was clearer now, healthier, framed by studio lights instead of rain. It was her. The same frightened eyes, now calm, now alive. The report explained that she was a rising journalist who had collapsed due to severe exhaustion and untreated illness. Doctors said that if help had not arrived when it did, the outcome could have been tragic. The anchor spoke of an unnamed man who had stayed with her in the storm, ensuring she survived. Ethan felt something warm and unfamiliar spread through him, not pride, but relief. Relief that she was alive. Relief that Lily had seen kindness reflected back at her through a screen. That night, Lily asked questions as children do, wondering if the lady was okay, if she remembered Daddy, if helping people always led to good things. Ethan answered gently, careful not to promise a world he knew could be cruel. He told her that doing the right thing mattered even when no one noticed. What Ethan did not know was that the woman on the screen, Maya Reynolds, had been searching for him. Maya's life before that storm had been a relentless climb. Deadlines, expectations, the pressure to prove herself in a competitive industry had pushed her beyond her limits. She had ignored warning signs, skipped meals, and convinced herself that rest was weakness. When she woke up in the hospital, the doctor's words shook her deeply. But what haunted her most was the memory of Rain in a stranger's arms holding her steady while the world spun out of control. Once she recovered, Maya asked questions, tracked details, and followed the thin thread of information until it led her to a modest restaurant and a single father who never thought his name would matter to anyone else. When she finally found Ethan, she did not come with cameras or applause. She came with gratitude and a quiet determination to repay a debt that could never truly be repaid. What followed was not an instant miracle but a slow, meaningful shift. Maya used her platform to highlight everyday heroes, beginning with Ethan, though she respected his discomfort with attention. Donations poured into a fund set up for Lily's education. The restaurant owner, suddenly aware of the man he had overlooked for years, offered Ethan a promotion to a steadier position with better hours. Opportunities appeared not because Ethan had asked for them, but because kindness had a way of echoing when given space. For Ethan, the greatest change was not financial, though it eased burdens he had carried alone for too long. It was watching Lily's eyes light up with pride, seeing her understand that her father's quiet goodness mattered in a loud world. It was realizing that being kind had not made him weaker, as life sometimes suggested, but stronger in ways he had never measured. Near the end of that year, as rain once again tapped gently against their apartment windows, Ethan and Lily sat together watching the city glow. The storm outside felt different now, less threatening, almost reflective. Ethan thought about how close he had come to walking past that young woman, how easy it would have been to tell himself he had nothing left to give. He understood then that the smallest choices often carried the greatest weight. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness still exists in quiet corners of the world, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep stories like Ethan and Lily's alive, spreading hope where it's needed most.